So the past 40K podcasts that we've been exploring and pushing up to my archives here on the YouTube channel has been following along the lines of, so you want to play Space Marines, so you want to play Eldar, so you want to play Necrons, so you want to play Tyranids. This idea that when we approach Warhammer 40,000, compare that to other war games, there are multiple factions, multiple units within each faction, many paths to victory, many different ways to build out your army. And while those tactics are important and you're going to develop your own play style and how you want to approach the game, there is this DNA based on the rules, based on the core rules of how each army approaches the various missions in the structure of 8th edition 40K right now. There's just certain fundamentals that will make your life much easier, that will make the army much easier to play. It's not the way to play it. It's not the only way to play it, but it's going to give you some strength as you develop out your play style. And part of this, primarily the matrix of this, comes from the core stat line of all the units on there, balanced out by the points. So let's talk about chaos. Let's talk about the dark gods. And one of the challenges in playing Chaos Space Marines, if you're then jumping into Loyalists, or in my case, I started playing Space Wolves a long time ago, and when I made the jump to playing Chaos Marines, granted it was a different codex, granted there was significant differences in how the army operated, but at its core, it's an powered armored army. Not quite on there, because Chaos does have its differences. Now, I want to mention one of the core tactics of Space Marines does carry over a little bit to Chaos Space Marines, but you have a lot more flexibility based on the units. And I'm just going to mention that briefly as a foundation. Certainly, the entire Space Marine vlog is up in my archives under the Warhammer 40,000 playlist. You get some sort of armor save with Space Marines. Of course, it's going to be modified for AP, and at this time, in 8th edition, every gun's got at least some sort of modifier to throw up on AP. But the general idea is if you're making your armor saves, something's kind of gone wrong with your tactics. And I know that's a little bit draconian. I know I'm being a little bit harsh there. But I would like myself to approach the thought of armor saves as a last-ditch defense when things have gone wrong. Ideally, you want to get the jump and be shooting at your opponent or be assaulting or psychics on your opponent before they're doing that to you. Side note, Grey Knights 100% beyond with that. I mean, Grey Knights being an elite army, and we'll talk about Grey Knights. We need to talk about Grey Knights. So that certainly, with Chaos Space Marines being a powered armored army, that's important. Now, what's interesting, there's 3 tiers to Chaos. In these 3 tiers, there's a little bit of mobility up and down based on how you want to upgrade and mark up each unit. So you've got the generic Space Marines. Then you have what I label as the cult troops on there. Plague Marines, Khornate Berserkers, Slaanesh, Tzeentch. Then you have special characters and the psychics, the sorcerers, up on top. And then on the bottom below regular generic power armored Marines, you've got your cultists. You have vehicles like regular Space Marines, but you also have some demonic engines, which, while they behave like vehicles, they offer a little bit more in terms of abilities and some built-in powers on there. So with Chaos Space Marines, at the core right now, you want to... It's funny. More and more that I play Chaos Space Marines, it feels like I'm playing Eldar back in 4th edition. Eldar back in 4th edition had very specialized units. The idea, and Eldar have changed completely with the playstyle over the years, but the idea was you had these aspects that focused on very specific parts of the game. You know, Dark Reapers were going to be the long-range attack on there. Banshees, kind of the glass cannon moving in. Harlequins not being a proper aspect, put them off to the side. We will look at the Space Clowns and how they operate. That's where Chaos is right now. You take some of those cult troops, you jack them up, you add in some support from the HQ choices on there, they become really, really, really potent. The challenge here is, and this is true of every army, what I define as critical mass. Enough models on the table based for the size of the game that you are playing that give you the ability through the volume of dice that they generate in the various attack phases, psychic, shooting, assault, that you have enough bodies to take losses over X number of turns, and you can still do two things: A, win the mission, and B, bring down your opponent's model count. So playing a pure cult troop type army, I won't say it's impossible. It's very, very challenging. And you can go mono build on there. We've talked about my Berserkers of Scalathrax, this Cornate Glory army. That's up in the archive. That's on my blog, the link underneath. And I would say most of my resources are focused on Khorne Berserkers. But I can't do that alone because I don't have enough model mass. I have to supplement that with other things. So think about your layer, whether it's a big layer or small layer, you are going to unlock. It feels like, I don't know, playing Magic the Gathering or something where there's all these unlocks and crazy combinations and things that you want to build. That's going to be your cult troops. Tactically, you're going to have to figure out how to effectively apply them against your opponent. Now we need bodies. Now we need some cultists. And I know a couple of people have remarked, and you are somewhat correct, Fritz's answer to everything is cultists. The challenge is with the bar being risen so much higher for the cult troops, you need that model mass. The only way is, or I should say one of the ways if we're staying pure chaos, is to bulk in with cultists. You're going to want that to be that first wave. You're going to want that just to put some dice damage down on the table and give you enough model mass. Then you need kind of the third wave, and this is where things get really interesting. And this plays a little bit into Blood Angels and Space Wolves as of right now. So certainly Blood Angels, Dark Angels too, a little bit, but they're more heavily powered, armored, Terminator-esque. Dark Angels have a lot more in common playstyle-wise with Grey Knights on there with the crossover. But the idea is with Blood Angels and Space Wolves, you have the core DNA, the core stat line of a Marine, but they have certain vehicles, they have certain units that are not available to generic Marines, Ultramarines, things like that. So that's not to say you can't play those units. You want to take it like Ball Predators. I'm playing Blood Angels. I want to utilize those. I want to have that in a core of my list. So with Chaos Space Marines, sure, you can play a Vindicator. I have one in my Berserkers of Scalathrax list. I like big guns, right? Big guns never tire. But I also have Mauler Fiends. I also have Helldrakes. As a Chaos Space Marine player, one of the advantages that we have right now against our counterparts, the loyalist counterparts, or I should say the misguided counterparts on there, because we have that power armor DNA, we have that stat line, Demon Engines. That's something that is unique. That is something that you want to leverage on there. And again, it's not to say you can't play Land Raiders, you can't play all that other good stuff in there, but you want to take advantage of that unique path to Chaos Glory in the army. That's the template. We have the cult troops. You've got some crazy, crazy buffs when you move through there. You've got stuff like the Havocs with the crazy buffs, dedicated units that you can mark up and mix and match. We want to take advantage of that. How you do that, that's going to depend on your playstyle and where you're going. We definitely want to take advantage of some cultists or just fodder, because we need that dice. We need that dice to take that damage and to push out a little bit of damage. Nothing's more humiliating than having your elite units torn to down by autoguns and stuff like that. And then the final piece to look at the Demon Engines and employ the Demon Engines.